solitary confinement and knowing that it doesn't improve public safety. And let's have some step down so that the people aren't going from solitary confinement out onto the streets among the rest of us who are on the outside. I would also invite you to consider Senate 1707. It's our state flag, our state seal. It's got a sword over the head of an Indian, really. We are founded on racism and genocide, but that's not where we are today. Please, let us lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Brenda Nolan, and on deck is Eric Brown.
I'd like to speak about Resolve to Stop the Violence Project. RSVP is a restorative justice violence prevention program for incarcerated violent men. 90% of violence is committed by men, and 90% of that is on women and children, 10% men to other men. It has proven itself in California, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, New Zealand, Australia, and Singapore. It is an intensive 12-hour day, 6-day-a-week program with a 52-week post-release component of 3 hours a week. It has been evaluated and published and peer-reviewed. When a man participates in this program for 16 weeks, the recidivism rate for violence in the first year is 83%. Did I say that right? It decreases. In 12 weeks, 53%, and 8 weeks, 43%. Really good statistics. And when that was evaluated, $1 spent on the program, for every dollar spent, $4 were saved. The violence in the prison in the RSVP pod went to 0 as compared to the rest of the prison where it averaged 300 a year. Prisons are safer, and when these men get out, their families and communities are safer. I hope you will support an amendment to the budget of $300,000 for a pilot at Concord Farms, the place that was chosen by Commissioner Turco. The other $300,000 will be raised by grants and donations. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Eric Brown, and on deck is Kathy Leake.
Hello, my name is Eric Brown. I live in Stoneham. I am standing here in support of the Safe Communities Act. This is a very personal issue for me. Several years ago, my stepson, who I care very much about, I raised, was arrested by ICE and spent a night in jail and several years. He's actually still fighting deportation. I was aware that before I got married that I was marrying someone who was undocumented. I had no idea just how broken our immigration system is. I assumed that I would be able to just fix things being a citizen, and we went to lawyer after lawyer, and each one told us to wait, and we waited and waited for an immigration reform bill, national immigration reform bill, that never came. So when my son was 19, he was taking a Greyhound bus. He was on the wrong bus with the wrong skin color. He was picked out of the bus by ICE agents. I got a really horrible call about him being about to be jailed. He spent a night in jail. We had to go to Buffalo to bail him out. He's currently under DACA. He still has deportation hearings open against him. Obviously, with the change in administration, we're very worried about that. Families like mine, mixed status families, need protection. We need to know that we can trust the local police. We need to know that our families will have due process. We need to be secure that our kids won't be racially profiled. And we need protection to know more than ever that we won't be targeted by the current administration. I want to strongly support, ask for your support of the Safe Communities Act, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next is Kathy Leake, and on deck is Matt Quigley.
Hi, I'm Kathy LeQuee, and I'm from Salem. I'm part of a group called We the People Massachusetts, a statewide group, of which there's a North Shore chapter, and it used to be Massachusetts Move to Amend. I'm here because I'm concerned about the direction of our country and how it will affect our children's future. Many of the issues mentioned tonight, climate change, safety of our water and food, cost of medications and health care, all these issues are fundamentally related to the increasing role of corporate power in our government and our decreasing ability to regulate corporations. Corporations contribute significantly to our economy. They were established as legal entities to do business. Over the past 125 years, corporations, through the federal courts, have obtained rights that were originally granted to humans, you know, with bodies and hearts and all that stuff, allowing them to skirt many laws that were established in the public interest. In 2010, the courts defined corporate campaign spending as constitutionally protected free speech, the Citizens United decision. The ruling opened the floodgates for corporations to keep their funders anonymous and to spend unlimited funds on political ads. How do we address this? A constitutional amendment. 17 states, including Massachusetts, have called for one, but Congress, which gets significant funding from corporations now, is reluctant to act. The We the People Act, which is S379, in the Massachusetts legislature, calls for an amendment saying that money is not speech and that corporations don't have the rights granted to humans in the Constitution. It also calls for a People's Convention if we do not receive an amendment within 6 months from Congress. The Constitution included this option in case Congress is not responding to the wishes of the people. I want to thank Senator Lovely and Representative Welch, who have co-sponsored the bill, and urge all of you to pursue passing the bill as soon as possible. We must save our democracy before it's too late. Thank you. Thanks for this conversation.
Thank you. Up next, Matt, is it Quigley?
It's Quayle, Matt Quayle.
Quilling.
Yes.
And on deck is Beth Contos.
Thank you, Senator Lovely, President Rosenberg, other legislators, excuse me. I'm a resident of the city of Beverly, and I'm also a 15-year employee in bus maintenance at the MBTA. I would like to urge all of you to continue to support anti-privatization at the MBTA. The men and women of the MBTA bus maintenance have done a fabulous job, as you've heard earlier tonight. The MBTA does not have a bus maintenance problem, they just want it to cost less. In recent weeks, the MBTA has refused to negotiate with certain labor unions, and we would appreciate if you would urge the governor and the leadership of the MBTA to sit down with labor and hash out a plan where we can move forward. Numbers is something that you can play with numbers a lot. You hear a lot about numbers from different organizations. You know, the Pioneer Institute, McKinsey Group, the Mass Fiscal Alliance. These type of groups do not portray the numbers in actuality. They cherry pick what they want and they try to sell it to the public as gospel. The fact of the matter is that the MBTA is the #1 performing bus maintenance department in the country. And the nearest one is 100% better, less than what we do on a day-to-day basis. We're highly invested in the equipment that we service. A brand new bus is in excess of $700,000. So the taxpayers of Massachusetts deserve someone that is invested in the system, is invested in their work, is invested in the forward thinking in the state of Massachusetts. Without a safe, reliable, clean public transit, what do we really have? We want to be part of the solution. We're not part of the problem. And we urge you all to talk to the members of the House and to the governor's office and the leadership of the MBTA to negotiate in good faith. Thank you so much for your time. And a shout out to Senator Donnelly. He'll be a great leader, labor friend that will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Beth Contos, and on deck is Pam Payne.
Hi, great to be here tonight. Thank you for joining us here. It's great to see you out here in our communities. So I'm Beth Contos. I live in Danvers. I'm a teacher in Salem. I love being a teacher. It's the best job in the world. I'm very proud of all the teachers. I'm the president of the Salem Teachers Union, but I'm not just proud of the teachers in Salem, obviously. Massachusetts has a wonderful school system. I have 4 issues that I'm going to speak very quickly about. They're all related. Recently, I attended a presentation by the Mass Budget and Policy Center. They're nonpartisan. The topic was state funding to public schools. It was alarming, to say the least. By the state's own admission, we are underfunding our schools by $1.5 billion annually. There is a great need for full funding. We have aging buildings, we have a rise in special education costs, we have improved and increased services for our English language learners, and the increased interest in and need for vocational education warrants full funding for our schools to be ready for the jobs of our future. As teachers, we see the effects of poverty in our classrooms. More children come to school ill-prepared. They need food, weather-appropriate clothing, books in the home, and easy access to health care. I urge you to support and participate in the conversation about changing the formula for school funding. I urge you to support the Fair Share Amendment, which I believe most, if not all of you already have the first time around. I fully support the Safe Communities Act. Our children need to feel safe coming to school. They need to know that their parents will be there when they get home. And please support the Rise Up Massachusetts $15 an hour minimum wage. It's ironic that I beg for the most basic needs for our children when the people who are actually running our country are multi-billionaires, and they wouldn't live on $15 an hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Michael McLaughlin, Everett City Councilor, who will be on deck. Up next is Pam Payne.
Good evening. I'm Pam Payne from Peabody, and I'm here in support of the amendment that has been spoken of before, the constitutional amendment. It's been over 7 years since the Supreme Court's disastrous Citizens United decision. 18 states and over 700 cities and towns have asked Congress to propose a constitutional amendment to overcome this decision by asserting that corporations are not people and money is not speech. However, Congress has not proposed such an amendment, and corporations and billionaires continue to dominate. Special interests are buying elections and dictating public policy. Ordinary Americans have little influence over what their government does. Not only that, but over the years, the U.S. Supreme Court has given corporations and other special interests rights meant only for humans. As a result, hundreds of laws protecting our health, safety, environment, and democracy have been overturned. Something needs to be done. We need a constitutional amendment to affirm that corporations are not people and money is not speech. We've never had an Article 5 amendment convention. We hopefully never will. Whenever states have lined up to call one, as occurred in 4 of the past 11 amendments, Congress has preemptively proposed the needed amendment rather than allowing their authority to be usurped. Nevertheless, the ability and willingness of the states to call an amendment convention serves the purpose of keeping Congress accountable to the people. States have called for the amendment hundreds of times. That was a quick 2 minutes. We are trying to get this the Constitutional Convention, which, by the way, will not open things to many different proposals being made. So I thank you very much for being here. I urge all of you to consider the amendment.
Thank you. Up next is Michael McLaughlin, and on deck is Julie Curtis.
Thank you, Senator Lovely. Good evening, Senate President Rosenberg. My name is Michael McLaughlin, and I'm an Everett City Councilor. I wanted to come tonight to thank you for what you're doing here across the state. It's truly incredible to see our senators listening to the residents. The leadership that you all show on a daily basis to small local communities like mine is impeccable. It's really important that we have voices fighting for us on Beacon Hill, and we know that we can always count on our state senators. You are always there to listen. And I want to thank you for your leadership in fighting back on school cuts that have happened across the state. My community was dramatically impacted by some of the recent cuts that were made in school funding. And I want to thank you for what you've done, and I know that you'll continue to fight for local schools because we can never spend enough money on the education of our future. So I want to thank you tonight. Thank you for what you're doing here. It's truly amazing, and I appreciate being here tonight to have the opportunity to thank you in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Julie Curtis, and on deck is Beverly Griffin Dunn.
Good evening. My name is Julie Curtis. I'm the ASME Union representative at Salem State University, where I represent 278 people. I'm also the vice president of the North Shore Labor Council. But today I'm here to ask for your support in the legislation filed by Senator Timilty and Representative Mark. It's S1474. H2569. This will cap the out-of-pocket costs for employees at $2,500 for individuals and $5,000 for families, so no one has to go bankrupt to pay necessary medical care. The reason that this is very important that this passes is that it increases in out-of-pocket costs have a disappropriate impact on the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. Earlier this year, the Group Insurance Commission voted to approve changes to copay and deductibles that will once again raise out-of-pocket costs for employees. These changes will go into effect July 1st. I know firsthand as a state employee what happens when our rates go up. I represent the support staff. We're the lowest paid people on the campuses, and we're the hardest working people. We're the ones that are there in the morning when it opens. We're the ones that are there when they close. This will be an unbelievable hardship on the people that make the lowest amount of money to have our insurance rates go up. And so because of that and several other reasons, I'm asking that you support S1474H2569. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Up next is Beverly Griffin Dunn, and on deck is Paul Enzikos.
Thank you, Senator Lovely, and thank you all for coming to Peabody. Welcome to our brand new middle school. I'm very happy that you're here, and you can see the product of a very important partnership between the state and local governments. I can assure you we would not have this building if it was not without that partnership between Peabody and the MSBA. We're very grateful for that. One of the things that I want you to think about when you go into your budget hearings is the funding adequacy study. It points out all of the areas in the state of Massachusetts where funds are not available for education. The cost of education rises just as everything else in the state does, but educators are doing much more now to educate our children, and it is much more costly. The constant underfunding of the education system is causing more and more difficulties as we go forward. I don't think we can ever catch up, and we really do need to catch up. So please, when you are involved in those discussions, if you could look at the suggestions and the requirements of that funding study, it would be appreciated. One other item I'd like to bring up, which is a bit related to that, is the fact that Massachusetts is an opt-out state. You're hearing from people now who are talking about their fears of privatization. And I think as senators, you all need to look at the issue of people who work all their life and may be forced with changing their career. If they've worked for years and paid into Social Security and then worked for years for the state, they're not allowed to benefit from two pensions. In other words, they can't collect the same amount of Social Security and pension that other people do. For every dollar in their pension that they gain, it is taken away on their Social Security. This is creating a crisis for elderly people, and as the economy changes more and more and people do not have a lifelong career in one business, this is going to affect more and more people. Please look at the opt-out status of Massachusetts and change it. Thank you again for coming, and remember, you're sitting in the place where George Peabody, our city is named for, and he is very famous for a statement, education, a debt due from the present to the future. Remember that when you look at the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Paul Enzikos, and on deck is Jim Malloy.
Good evening, Senator Lovely, President Rosenberg, Senators and Representatives. I'm Paul Enzikos, Executive Director of North Shore Services. Our community-based agency on a daily basis serves about 2,000 frail elders, providing them necessary home care services, including Meals on Wheels, protective services, and personal care. Along with our other 25 community-based agencies, we serve over 60,000 elders on a daily basis. I want to thank you for your support this year for both supplemental budget requests that have helped avoid creating waiting lists in our home care program and keeping frail elders out of nursing facilities in their own homes and communities where they choose to be and should be. And I also want to thank the House Ways and Means Committee for the release of a very positive recommendation for the FY18 budget. As you're considering that budget request, I'd ask you to consider 3 areas of potential enhanced expenditures. One is there's a group of individuals who are currently above financial eligibility limitations, but are still not in a position to afford their own home care services and immediately at risk of a nursing facility placement without the necessary home care services. Secondly, in our protective services, unfortunately, this is the fastest growing area of our services because of elders who are victims of financial exploitation, neglect, and abuse. And the third area that I would ask you to look at is in the Meals on Wheels program, providing necessary nutrition and supportive services to over 30,000 Massachusetts elders on a daily basis.
Thank you. Up next is Jim Malloy, and on deck is Robert Stanfield.
Hello, I'm Jim Malloy from Boxford, and I'm here to urge you to support Senator Barrett's bill, SB Senate Bill 1821, our carbon pricing. But I first want to thank you for being here. It's fantastic what you're doing. I'm a recent transplant to the state. Actually, I'm a native, but I'm sort of coming back after 3 decades. And this forum is fantastic. It did not happen in different states that I was in. And I recently heard on NPR Senator Rosenberg introducing, I think maybe the governor, and going through a list of how Massachusetts has been leading in different ways. Number 1 in education, number 1 in innovation, and it really made me very proud to be from Massachusetts. So I want to thank you all. It's partly the work that you do. You should be proud of that work. On climate change, we must start working. So I'm a scientist, that's my background. I know what's going on. It's very important we take this seriously. In 2 decades, you don't want to be looking at your kids and saying, I had power, but I didn't move because. We can do something now in Massachusetts. We can be a leader on this issue. We can take the lead and show the country how to do it right. So Senator Barrett's bill, which is a revenue neutral, basically the money goes back to individuals and businesses. This is the way it will work on the national level. It's the only way it will work in this poisoned, partisan environment that we have. Revenue neutral is the way to do it, and our state can show the way. So I really urge you to take this seriously. Representative Benson's bill is also good. 20% is for a green bank type thing, and 80% goes back to the people and the businesses. But I would urge you, 1821, please support this. Let's do it this term. Let's really make this happen. We can lead the nation. And number 1 issue right now, long term, which is your job as legislators, you need to be looking long term, is climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Robert Stanfield, and on deck is Sue Dubler.
Good evening. My name is Robert Stanfield. I live in Everett, And I'd like to tell you about my, I want you to support Bill H-740, the alimony reform law. In 1991, I was married, and I had 2 children, Laura and Nick. And in 2001, my ex-wife got laid off, and she was working for Peabody and Arnold, a law firm. And she worked for that law firm for 26 years, and she was definitely employable. But for the next 6 years, we argued constantly because she refused to go back to work. Now, she filed for divorce in 2007, and my son was 13 in 8th grade. My daughter was a sophomore in high school. She kept the marital home, and me and the children moved into a small apartment, and my daughter actually had her bedroom was in the living room. So she kept the marital home. She still refused to get a job, and I've been paying alimony now for 10 years for almost $200,000. My daughter graduated from Suffolk University. I'm very proud of that, and my son is graduating this year from Framingham State University. Now, she thinks that this alimony should just last forever. Now, there was a law that was put into place in 2011 by Deval Patrick, and that law was written for everybody to have the same law. And the SJC is now overturning these laws and creating a new law, and these laws are meant to be for the same for everybody, not for people that were married before the law was written and after the law was written. My divorce ended in 2010, and the law was written in 2011. So now they're saying that my alimony is going to continue because my marriage ended in 2010. That's just not fair. And I hope you will support this new law.
Thank you. Up next is Sue Dubler, and on deck is Hugh Wright.
Good evening, Sue Dubler, Winchester, Massachusetts. Thank you very much for hearing us this evening. I would like to add my voice to others and encourage you strongly to support carbon pricing. When Massachusetts is uniquely positioned, there are 2 bills currently in the legislature. More than 100 legislators have co-sponsored one or more of those bills. This is the time to pass this bill, one of these bills, to get carbon pricing passed. This will have a huge impact for not only our state, but our country and our world. Please take this seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Hugh Wright, and on deck is Dawn Green.
Hi, my name is Hugh Wright. I appreciate the chance to speak to you tonight. I'm from Winchester also. We're with a 350.org group, and so you know what I'm going to say next. We're very interested in the carbon pricing and environmental issues. You've heard tonight from, I'm heartened to hear many people who recognize the urgency, and I hope that you'll take action on the bills that are before you. Don't do it for anybody here, do it for our grandchildren and their grandchildren. Thanks.
Thank you. Up next is Dawn Green, and on deck is Emery Hughes.
Good evening, and thank you, Senators. My name is Dr. Don Green, and I also want to thank the audience here for showing that government still plays an important role in our lives. Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, but I looked down the list of topics and I did not see health insurance reform as a topic tonight. Yet it's been a very strong national conversation. And just to get an idea of this, I would like the audience to raise their hand, and I think it is time for true universal health insurance reform.